This is Fred Richani of TSC News here to quickly recap WWE Monday Night Raw for December 7th, 2015. We'll play a little bit of WWE 2K16 in the process. Well, technically we're sort of simulating one of the matches we saw tonight. This was the go-home show for WWE TLC, as in the final Raw, to hype you up, to get you pumped up for the WWE TLC 2015 pay-per-view. And I gotta say, they did a pretty terrible job of getting you hyped up, that's for sure. Pretty terrible job. Man. There were some reports, some rumors about hashtag big changes coming on Raw. Dave Meltzer talked about it on his radio show, saying that there could potentially be some big changes. He didn't say there'd be changes tonight, but it made for a fun hashtag, and I figured, hey, you know what? If they're actually thinking about changing things up on Raw, you never know. Maybe it can start tonight. Maybe, just maybe, they'll call up Baron Corbin or Finn Balor, or they'll have some hype videos and vignettes and whatever, but no, that was unfortunately not meant to be. Instead, we had an opening promo with the League of Nations, who are the biggest collection of geeks ever in the history of pro wrestling for a main event stable. And they got confronted by the Wyatt family. And I was intrigued. I got excited. I said, oh my God, Bray freaking Wyatt is going to turn babyface? Hell yeah. I mean, 2 years too late, but still, Bray Wyatt is a babyface. And then the Dudleys interrupted. The Dudleys then interrupted. And they were talking and talking. And then Roman Reigns and his quote-unquote family came out with the Usos and Dean Ambrose to confront everybody as well. And what do you know? We had a magical, random, sponsored by the ghost of Teddy Long, 4-team elimination tag team match playa. At least I think it was elimination. I mean, the announcers didn't even know the rules. I didn't know the rules. I really didn't have any reason to care. Long story short, this went past 3 commercial breaks, which was just preposterous. And Roman Reigns' team got the win when Roman Reigns pinned Sheamus, further cementing Sheamus as one of the biggest geek champions in recent wrestling history. And that includes Seth Rollins' most recent run. At least Seth Rollins was over for a certain time before he got beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten. We had Miz TV with Charlotte and her father, Ric Flair, because, you know, it's been such a long time since we've seen Ric Flair on TV, right? I mean, it's almost like every week. And Miz interviewed her about, you know, her dirty tactics against Becky Lynch. She had a confrontation with Paige. I tuned out during this, honestly. I'll fully admit that. I totally tuned out. I really, really didn't care. It was just, yeah, it sucked. I was more concerned with the Cowboys beating the Redskins, so that way my New York Football Giants could stay in playoff contention, and hopefully they're doing that as I'm broadcasting right now. But yeah, wasn't really feeling that at all. It was definitely ridiculous. And I forgot to mention too, Team 3D, you know, the Dudleys weren't just with Tommy Dreamer. They brought back Rhyno, which is pretty cool. Rhyno, for those that don't know, has been tearing it up on NXT. He most recently was teaming up with Baron Corbin in the Dusty Rhodes Memorial Tag Team Classic, which was pretty cool. I actually think, didn't they get in the finals? Yeah, I think they got in the finals against Samoa Joe and Finn Balor before losing. So he had a nice little career revitalization in NXT, and hopefully he'll stick around on the main roster because he's a guy that's not washed up. I'm not saying Tommy Dreamer and the Dudleys are necessarily washed up, but I think Rhino's actually in better shape than all three. Doesn't seem as banged up, and he cuts a hell of a promo too, as does Bubba Ray Dudley when allowed to. But unfortunately, they're stuck casting him as 1996 Bubba Ray Dudley minus the stuttering, as opposed to 2012, 2013 Bully Ray when he was arguably the best heel in the professional wrestling business. Now, as you're watching this on YouTube, if you are watching this right now on YouTube, you can also listen to us now on iTunes, as well as SoundCloud. Rusev, he came out with Lana, who has a new look, and he took on the Ryback. Yes, Rusev doing double duty, Tommy Dreamer doing double duty, bunch of dudes doing double duty. And, well, things didn't go so well for poor Ryback. You see, he accidentally knocked down Lana, or so he thought. Lana was faking the injury. Rusev attacked him from behind and put him in the Accolade. But of course, Rusev, who's part of the main event heel stable, can't just get the win. No. He loses via double count out. But he took out Ryback, I guess, so yeah. When's the last time Rusev's actually won a match? I honestly can't remember. And main event and Superstars doesn't count because nobody watches those shows. We also had Tommy Dreamer take on Braun, the Snowman Strowman, and he was dispatched in relatively short order. We had Jack Swagger beat Stardust, followed by a confrontation with Alberto Del Rio, where Alberto Del Rio got into a little bit of a mix-up with Zeb Colter, and already they're broken up. It's like WWE woke up and said, wait a minute, Alberto Del Rio can actually cut promos. Wait, maybe Alberto Del Rio could even be a babyface down the road. Maybe he should have been a babyface from the beginning. And they essentially broke up. But it was very comical, very awkward. It's clearly setting up a chairs match between Jack Swagger and Alberto Del Rio for the United States Championship. And Alberto Del Rio took the steel chair, pressed it up against Zeb backstage, and cussed him out in Spanish. Or, he said, I don't know if he cussed him out, but he said some naughty things to him and said he doesn't need him. And then poor Zeb just sped away in his scooter. And Alberto Del Rio threw the chair at him. And Zeb looked back sadly and rode off into the moonlight. And the crowd went mild and giggled. I should note, too, that when Rusev was giving the accolade to Ryback right in front of the fans, there were a bunch of fans just on their phones, just taking pictures, without a care in the world. And honestly, why would they? Why would they care? Rusev's been neutered beyond belief, and Ryback, well, he's just, he's a guy at a certain level. That's really about it. Speaking of guys at a certain level, John Cena, who's definitely a level or 3 above the current crop right now, he's set to return in a couple weeks, so that should be exciting. Who knew that we'd all miss John Cena? But the guy's had so many great matches this year. I mean, at this point, you know what? I'd rather see John Cena as WWE champion. Give him the title. Let him have great matches. Let him cut great promos, even if his stuff's a little stale. And then when you're actually ready to push a guy or pull the trigger on Reigns or pull the trigger on Ambrose for once, then you know what? You can give somebody else the title. But I'd rather see the title on somebody protected and over, like John Cena, who gets a reaction, who has great matches, than some bum like Sheamus. Not to say Sheamus doesn't have good matches, even great matches at times, but man, he's just not the guy, and that is an understatement. We had Kevin Owens in a non-title match beat Dolph Ziggler. Really good match. Tyler Breeze was at ringside. Some tomfoolery there. We had Naomi and Sasha Banks beat Brie Bella and Alicia Fox. And then the New Day came out with unicorn horns, which they are now selling on WWEshop.com, believe it or not. And the New Day and Team Bad were dancing. And while I am a man that happens to find Sasha Banks attractive, and under normal circumstances would not complain about her twerking, I just thought to myself, how does this make me take the Tag Team Champions seriously? How does this make me take the women's division seriously? How does this make me take Sasha Banks, arguably the best women's worker on the roster outside of Asuka and Natalya, seriously? It doesn't. Instead, I'm focused on her ass as opposed to being focused on her attributes and her awesome in-ring presence. And I'm sure a majority of the audience noticed that too. They weren't focused on the fact that she'd a backstabber and had the bank statement as a former NXT Women's Champion. No, they're focused on the fact that she's a hot chick that's dancing and for some strange reason wearing a unicorn horn. And I'm a fan of the New Day. I love what they've done, making crap into gold. However, I really think they jumped the shark these last couple of weeks. They've been overexposed, and they've strayed into the realm of just ridiculousness. They've jumped the shark. They have jumped the shark. They have gone past the point of comedy, and now they're just parodies of themselves. Really, the unicorn horns? The unicorn horns. And after they danced to Team Bad, they cut a long promo with some bad jokes just to kill time because, it's a 3-hour show and they need time to fill. And, man, it was just brutal. That promo died a miserable death. And then they wrestled the Lucha Dragons and lost, albeit in a non-title match. And they'll be defending the tag titles against the Usos as well as the Lucha Dragons this Sunday at TLC. Man, they're still head and shoulders above everybody else as far as, being over in the tag team division. But that's really not saying much given the current state of, the tag team division. And before the Usos returned, I figured, you know what? Leave the New Day with the titles for a while. It's not a big deal. At this point, give it to the Usos. Give it to the Usos. Go back to having great tag team matches. Let them hold on to the titles for a while. And try to rebuild some credibility. I think all 3 members of the New Day are really talented. But it's like a lot of things with WWE. They have a good thing, and then they just go overboard and overboard and overboard with it. Like Fandango. Fandango is a nice organic thing, and then they had to overexpose him, and they also beat him a bunch of times, and that didn't help. So that's just my opinion. I felt like they jumped the shark quite a bit with that. And let's see if I missed anything else before we get to the main event segment. They had a SmackDown commercial, of all things. Actually, it's not of all things. In a month, they're moving to the USA Network, which I completely forgot about until I saw the commercial. The problem is that commercial was the Authority sitting behind their desk, kind of reenacting one of those scenes from Office Space where they interview all the employees and ask them why they should be kept. And they were interviewing various WWE superstars on whether or not they should be doing the SmackDown intro. And they had Paige say, I can say cool things in a British accent. They had Roman Reigns, their sworn enemy, doing really bad comedy. It was just really awkward. They had Stardust. Yes, because nothing sells a wrestling show to fans more than really bad comedy. Look, if it was good comedy, it's one thing. But if it's just bad comedy that I don't know, some failed Hollywood writer came up with, yeah. Well, it was not very good. Why not show highlights of Brock Lesnar destroying people? Why not show highlights of John Cena? Why not show highlights of Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns spearing, Big Show through the barricade or something? No, let's just do comedy. And they wonder why people won't take them seriously. Man, need I say more? I really don't think so. And in the main event segment, we had Roman Reigns come out. The ring was filled with ladders and chairs and tables. And Reigns cut actually a decent promo by the low Roman Reigns standards that WWE has set, talking about how 3 years ago he made his WWE pay-per-view debut at TLC as far as being in a real match. And he said, a couple years later, I became the WWE champion at Survivor Series. And then Sheamus cashed in. Well, Sheamus, I'm going to show you what it's like to be a former champion. So Sheamus came out, and Sheamus said, fella, that's a nice fort you have over there. And then Sheamus called him tater tots. Or, excuse me, Roman Reigns called him tater tots. And then Sheamus said, you're funny, fella. Well, you can't hide behind the fort. And then Roman Reigns said, come on, tater tots. And then Sheamus said something about a fort again. And they said they're not waiting until TLC. And then Sheamus backed off. And then they brawled. And they brawled some more. And they brawled some more. And Roman Reigns got the upper hand. And, well, that was that. All I can say is John Cena cannot come back soon enough. For the love of God. This was just horribly scripted. So wooden. Okay, there were a few fans cheering. And Roman Reigns does have his fans. And when you push just one guy all the time, of course people are going to cheer him. Because he's literally the only guy that succeeds. Although even in big matches, he tends to fail. Over and over and over and over and over again. So, a thumbs down show. I tuned into Raw looking for some hashtag big changes. And instead, I got more of the same old crap. A quick injury update. Poor Randy Orton. Not only does the guy have to have shoulder surgery, but the dude is also probably going to have neck surgery, which means he could be out not just for a year, but perhaps 18 months. Perhaps, worst case scenario, 2 years. Actually, worst case scenario for WWE, he might say, you know what? I got a new wife. I got a bunch of stepkids as well as my own daughter. Screw this. I'm just going to count my money and chill. Who knows? At the very least, I could see him coming back and saying, guys, I'd really, really, really like a part-time schedule right about now. But that's a ways away. So let's see. To recap, WWE lost Cesaro. They lost Randy Orton. They lost Daniel Bryan. They lost Seth Rollins. Doesn't look like Batista's coming back. Doesn't look like The Rock's coming back. It doesn't look like Ronda Rousey's going to be able to accommodate him with her busy schedule. John Cena's out for now, but he'll be back in a couple weeks. Brock Lesnar's a part-timer. Undertaker's a part-timer and a 50-year-old man. They're not pushing Dean Ambrose past a certain level. They're not pushing Kevin Owens past a certain level. Man, they got to do something. I'll tell you this. There's definitely no quick fix, though. That's for sure. But they could bring up a guy like Finn Balor. He could drop the title to Samoa Joe next week at NXT TakeOver London. And then they could do some vignettes, hyping his debut. He could debut at the Royal Rumble, have a kick-ass showcase match, and route to a big match at WrestleMania. Sami Zayn's coming back. I realize NXT is this kind of vanity indie promotion now for Triple H, and it's showing investors and shareholders that Triple H can run a company because he's been successful at making NXT a viable third brand, and that's or I guess second brand technically because there's no brand extension anymore, and that's cool and all. But in reality, they're sinking all this money into NXT, not to sell out a few arenas here and there and sell some extra merch, but to create stars of the future. Stars that will keep WWE afloat and hopefully take them to greater heights. Finn Balor is 34 years old. Why is he still in NXT? Samoa Joe is one of the best wrestlers in the world. Why is he in NXT? Sami Zayn is in his 30s as well. And he has Daniel Bryan-like traits. Not only is he phenomenal in the ring, he is excellent on the mic. And much like Daniel Bryan, he's got an amazingly endearing quality about him that just makes you like him. Yet, he's in NXT. I guess we'll see what happens after NXT TakeOver. That's for sure. But in the meantime, let's go to some comments here. Danelle Clemens says, this was the first Raw I couldn't make it through. Wow. What took you so long? He said, I changed the channel to Monday Night Football during the Ryback match. You're a more patient man than me, brother. Cody Collier says, tonight's Raw ending was awesome. Well, at least somebody thinks so. Gladiator Z56 says, all we got was Rhyno. Brandon Vasquez says, did you see T-Rex, a.k.a. Rhyno, make his Raw debut? Actually, Rhyno debuted back in, 2001 for WWE? So, I guess it was his re-debut. Okay. Everything that happened tonight was awesome. I don't know what you were watching, dude. Remember, Fred, Flair is one of the last of the old guard left after WWE disowned Jimmy Snuka and Hulk Hogan. I'm fine with him being the last of the old guard. Here's the thing. You don't have to have him on TV every week. And you don't have to have him in crappy segments like Miz TV. God forbid you actually use a legend in a segment to sell a main event or 2 or 3 like they used to do with Mick Foley on occasion. But not anymore. Jack Johnson, version 3, says, hey, Fred. What's up, bro? And BV also says that segment was long and boring. The bickering between Sheamus and Roman Reigns was boring. One thing that was funny was tater tots. At least Roman Reigns got the crowd to chant tater tots. I guess that's a highlight, right? Right? Brutal. What can I say? Just brutal. Well, folks, I think I'm going to get on out of here. I hope you enjoyed WWE 2K16 in the background for those listening in podcast form on iTunes and SoundCloud. That's what you're hearing in the background. We're actually playing WWE 2K16 as we're doing this live recap in real time on YouTube. If you guys want to join me for my next few recaps, I'll tell you what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing a WWE TLC preview and predictions show sometime later this week. I'll probably have a short pre-show up on Sunday prior to the TLC pay-per-view, and we will definitely be doing a live WWE TLC 2015 recap immediately following the main event Sunday night, probably around 11 o'clock. If you're a UFC fan, this is a big week for you because we're going to be covering the Paige Van Zandt versus Rose Namajunas fight. We're going to be covering the Edgar versus Mendez event, the Ultimate Fighter finale, with some serious title implications. The winner of Edgar versus Mendez, perhaps, will face the winner of Aldo versus McGregor. And, of course, the big one, Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor this Saturday night. In the meantime, please feel free to check out our UFC 194 conference call broadcast. We uploaded the full conference call featuring Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold, Jose Aldo, and Conor McGregor. We also, via EA Sports UFC on Xbox One, simulated both UFC 194 main events. And on WWE 2K16, I just simulated Kevin Owens versus Dean Ambrose for the IC title, as well as Sheamus versus Roman Reigns for the WWE title. And we will be simulating the rest of the TLC card all throughout the week. And on top of all that, folks, I'll be doing reviews of all the past TLC pay-per-views right here on TSC News. I just uploaded my review, my retrospective of TLC 2009, if you want to check that out. And again, you don't just have to log on to YouTube, although we do appreciate it. You can also check out our podcast on soundcloud.com/TSC News, or just hop on iTunes and subscribe there because, yes, we are now on iTunes, and we thank you all very much for your support. So if you enjoyed this broadcast, please click the like button. Please share this with all your friends. Please don't forget to subscribe for more WWE videos.